Good afternoon. I'm just so glad to see you all here, and we'll be taping this session, so you'll be able to use this session for your faculty or faculty meetings and talking about this in the future. And I just can't be more happy to introduce Janice Clements to you. Many of you have already met her today. Many of you know her as a scientist. Many of you know her as someone very involved with faculty development. And I'm going to tell you that I'm getting a little caught up. I've known Janice since 2003, and she sort of saved my soul. So if I were to tell you what Janice has done for me, is she really helped me for the 11 years I was at Hopkins to be a really good chair of surgery. She helped recruit me there, and then once I got there and I blamed her for getting me there, she actually told me it was the right thing to do and that I was in the right spot, and was really a great mentor, not only to me, but to many of the chairs, and is so accomplished in that area. So we were so delighted she agreed to come talk with us and spend quite a bit of her time here this week. For the first 2 days, she's going to be someone really involved with faculty development. And then for the next 2 days, she's going to be a scientist out at the Davis campus, because many of you know her in that role. So she's a professor of molecular and comparative pathobiology, neurology, pathology with a joint department in the Department of Molecular Biology. And that's always been the toughest part about Janice, is to know where she belongs, because she's in a department that has so many amazing things that she does. She's been the Vice Dean for Education at Hopkins since 2000, and that's when I first met her, and she was the Mary Wallace Staton Professor in Faculty Affairs. And I watched her grow that Dean's office from 2003, which was really Janice, and then she grew it to add many more elements, which we're looking to do, looking at diversity, looking at women's issues, looking at young faculty, clinical faculty, the changing times in NIH, how are we going to keep funded, what do we do to stay on the edge, and how do we keep people engaged, knowing this is the place you want to be. And she's the person that did it to me. She was the 24th woman to get full professor there. I was 89th, I think. We all had pins for a couple years looking at that. And I was there when the 100th woman became a professor at Hopkins. She added many amazing people to her team. Barbara Fiva, who ran the women's issues. Chiquita Collins, who was recently there running diversity, that I had the pleasure of running 2 search committees with to do that. And all of them with amazing new ideas and thoughts. And I think that's what we're going to think about for the next 2 days. She was the first director of comparative pathobiology, and many of you know her from that, from 2002 to 2007. She's a famous retrovirus investigator and still does that to the day. She sent me an email yesterday saying she didn't answer me because she was finishing up a grant. So that's Janice. She does that all. The one story I'll tell you about her is the first couple years I was there at Hopkins, we only had a one-track system, still do. So it was a one-track system, no clinical track. So as you brought in clinicians, they really had to be promoted along one track, which was a little difficult. And when I met with her, I thought one of the best things to do was have her meet my young faculty, so that she would understand what a young faculty, say that's a burn surgeon or thoracic surgeon, was doing and where they spent their time. So numerous faculty I brought in to meet her that were going to be up for associate professor, full professors, so she could hear their story about how they spent their day, collaborating with basic scientists, sometimes doing outcomes research, team science, really looking at all the clinical aspects. So when they came up for promotion, we would actually be able to see a whole painting, a whole horizon of what constitutes a professor. And I think that's what we're going to be aiming to also. There'll always be people like Janice, who does the basic science research, is well-funded, great discoveries in the basic science lab, but we're going to have outcome researchers, we're going to have team science, which is tough to look at, we're going to educators, all those people that we're so looking forward to creating new knowledge, and how do we put them in our organization to make us better. And she really got that happen. My promotion rate for my department was almost everyone was promoted to associate professor in 5 years. And at Hopkins, that's pretty tough to do, because we had a tract, we had a plan, and we would celebrate the professors as they got promoted as well too. And the first one became a professor in 9 years when I was there. I hired him from stem to stern in 9 years with a really good plan. So she's going to share to us why this is resources well spent on our people. Our people really are the gold, and she spent a lot of her resources, mainly emotional, with me to get me through to be a great chair, and then really supported me when I wanted to do this new adventure in my life. So welcome to Janice.
particularly a free idea. Well, first of all, I want to thank Julie for inviting me. First of all, so I get to see her, but also because it's really been the first opportunity. I've told people that I've met here, I usually talk about science. So you're going to see data in my slides because I'm used to presenting data. But it's really the first opportunity to sort of tell the story of how I built faculty development at Hopkins. And it made me think back over how I did it. And because I did that, when I was talking to people here, it was interesting to see where you are. And in some ways, you're ahead of us, and because you are part of a bigger system and you have that advantage. But in some ways, we're ahead of you. So I think it's a learning opportunity for all of us to talk about this important area. So I thought I'd give you a little history because you might think that Hopkins really has been doing this for a long time. But in fact, when I was asked to be in the Vice Dean's office in 2000, we actually didn't even have a Vice Dean that was focused on faculty. We had a Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, so that was education, that was faculty, that was anything that you could throw in there. And in fact, that person wasn't full-time. And so really education got taken care of because that person had to worry about LCME and the educational curriculum, but faculty really didn't have any advocacy. And so when the dean asked me to do it, essentially what he said was, this is a really good opportunity, but our faculty are doing fine. I'm not sure that it's going to be a big job. And that's why it's only 50%. So, and he was an optimist. He always saw things as, everything was good and we didn't have to fix anything. So, I did accept the job under those circumstances. And so when I started, what did we have? We did have a faculty policy book. We call it the Gold Book, and it defines faculty contracts. It defines one track for promotion, but it was written by a lawyer, and even I had never read it. So the first thing I did in the dean's office is I read it, and it read like something a lawyer wrote, and we needed to translate that into something faculty understood. We had employee orientation, and faculty were put through employee orientation to make sure they got their shots and this and that. But there was really nothing to orient the faculty to be a new faculty member, to tell them about what there was for them and who the people were to help them. There were annual reviews that were put forth in the Gold Book as being provided to faculty, but nobody did them except one chair. So only one department actually did them. Faculty promotion rates were not even looked at within the departments. We looked at them only at the level of the promotion committees, but when we started to look at that, what we found was the promotion committees weren't the problem. The bottleneck for faculty was in the departments not being put up. But we didn't know that because we hadn't assessed it. And the promotion process was completely non-transparent. Nobody knew how they got promoted when they did. I got to be a full professor, and I really didn't know. And departments really were the only advocates for faculty, and that's a conflicted role. So you needed someone to oversee that. And it was really the culture of sink or swim. And this was really the approach to faculty. You were lucky to be here, and you go find your office, you go find your resources, and we'll do everything else for you, which was not much except make you work. But but people loved to be there. People came to Hopkins like they come to Davis. You have great colleagues. You've got a great environment for doing research for clinical care. But times are changing, and we have to help our faculty to succeed. Because if our faculty don't succeed, we don't succeed. And our faculty keep churning. That costs us money, and that costs us efficiency. So I needed to think about how to approach this issue. So I've heard that that your School of Medicine is not different from ours. Ours is a very decentralized school. Authority lies with the department directors. And so before I came in, I was a scientist. So, you have a good idea, and you have a hypothesis, and then you propose a solution. I didn't ask any of the department chairs if they liked my idea or my solution. And so the first couple of ideas got shot down. I did not get their buy-in. So I decided that the thing I had to do, if anything was going to change, was to partner with the department directors. And so I spent the first 1.5 to 2 years really talking to all the department chairs. We had 30 departments. And to find out what the best practices were for them, and to begin to partner with whoever in their departments were doing some faculty development, so that I could gain some traction and some help, because it was just me and a half-time administrative assistant. So what I found was the Department of Medicine had a great faculty development guide. And so I worked with the associate chair in the Department of Medicine, and we turned that into the guide not for the Department of Medicine, but for the School of Medicine. That became our silver book. It was a faculty development guide. It was the first thing that sort of translated the gold book into something that the faculty could say, oh, this is what I do. This is how I can get promoted. These are the steps I should take. Turned out the Department of Pediatrics did faculty annual reviews. And so I talked to our chair, George Dover, and he did them himself. But he had a methodology, and he had a process. And so I sort of said, can I use it? Can we propose this to the rest of the department chairs at the advisory board? And so I partnered with the department directors and their faculty to really lead a culture change, so that we went from a feeling that we didn't need to do much for faculty to a culture where faculty were valued and we were going to do some extra things. We weren't going to pamper them, but we were going to make things a little bit easier for them to do the things we needed them to do. And I did that by setting up committees to really execute that change. So one of the first committees that we set up was the Committee on the Clinician Educator, because we found that none of our clinician educators, our educators, were getting promoted, because the criteria in the gold book and the criteria in the silver book were really applied much more to a researcher or a clinician, and the educator and what they did was not really the scholarship was not really highlighted. And so that committee really came up with a number of recommendations. And the other thing it did was it brought a consensus around the importance of education. And we actually got a donor, and we created an institute for excellence in education. The other thing that we did as part of that committee, and the chair of medicine led that committee, was we found that clinician educators took longer to get promoted. And so our rules about being at rank for 7 years and then having to leave didn't work any longer. It really doesn't work any longer for anybody in academic medicine. And so we changed our rules from an up and out to a flexible time. You could stay at rank as long as there was a role, the chair had a plan for you, and you were being productive and you were working towards promotion. We didn't want people to get stuck, but it took more time for people to get to promotion. So my strategy was really to partner with the chairs and the faculty, and to build case statements and to obtain data to support building what I was going to be building in the Office of Faculty. So as I said, these are sort of the things that we got accomplished. In 2001, we had the Silver Book, which really helped faculty see what they needed to do. 2004 was the Clinician Educator Committee, in which we did Gold Book changes, and we changed the educational pathways. And in 2005, we had a very, very important committee. It was called the Committee on Faculty Development and Gender. And that came out of a report that was produced because the dean came to see the women's group. So we had a group of senior women called the Women's Leadership Council. And the Women's Leadership Council had done some research about whether women, there was an increase in women in the basic sciences and the clinical faculty. And what we found was that the clinical faculty it was growing, because the pipeline was growing. But the number of women in the basic science was static for 10 years. And so they invited the dean, and they showed them the data. And he was really shocked because his impression was that things were going fine in the basic sciences. We had really prominent women, but we had the same number of them. So that committee, so he said, okay, we do need a committee. We need to look at what we're doing and not doing. And that committee came up with 12 recommendations, and one of which was to create an Office of Faculty Development. I was sort of they came to me with their recommendations, and I said, let's beef these up a little bit more because that's what we need. But it was working with the chairs of the committee and the faculty to really move things along, because me doing it alone wasn't the way that our school would have seen that there was value there. And then in 2009, Julie and Peter Pronovost chaired the Committee on the Promotion of the Clinician Innovator. This whole area of patient safety and clinical innovation, we were seeing again, faculty were not getting promoted. So this committee we spent a year, and we really had subcommittees that worked on different aspects and put together the clinician innovator portfolio and promotion criteria. And people are now getting promoted along this. We have a single track. So everybody is a professor on that track, but we have the different pathways and the criteria along those pathways. So as I said, in 2005, I got the recommendation that we needed an Office of Faculty Development. The dean said, okay, the faculty have spoken, the chairs support this. The report from the committee was adopted by the advisory board, and I was given the go-ahead to do some of the things in the recommendations. So the first thing that the committee had recommended is that we should track faculty salary equity. We had never done this in the School of Medicine, and there was the feeling among the faculty, especially the women faculty, that there was a lack of equity in salaries, in both base salaries and base plus bonuses, and that they wanted to know. So what we did was we got the data and we handed it over to the School of Public Health biostatisticians, because we didn't want to do it ourselves. We needed credibility. And so they had been doing the same thing for 5 years. So they had a model, they had algorithms. Ours was a little bit more complicated because their school really is much more homogeneous than a School of Medicine. But they really did a great job. And since 2005, we've been doing these faculty equity studies. And we don't just do the study. What we do is we write a report. We do the individual departmental evaluations. And what we do is we send the departmental evaluations to the department chair, and we ask them to look at it. And if there's people that are really out of range in equity, and frequently there are, it brings it to their attention, and they have to report back to me and to the CFO about what things are taking place to bring faculty back into equity. Many times when recruits are made, that really sends things somewhat out of equitable range. But what we're finding is that, especially in the first few years, there were issues of lack of equity among women faculty, and this sort of addressed that. And we publish all the data, and we ask the chairs to actually talk about it and share their data with their teams. And I think it's really, at least, people now know it's being done, and the faculty, while the women faculty still think there's a problem, we point to the data, and I'll show it to you in a minute, and it is fairly equitable, and we track it. So that's what we can say. The dean also mandated annual reviews for faculty, and those are now done for all assistant and associate professors. And the way we held the chairs, even the big departments, to do this is that unless they had documentation that they had done these faculty annual reviews, finance department would not approve salary raises. And while it sounds like we were punishing the faculty, it was the one way we could really have some control. And that's what I always wanted to have, some sort of really check and balance on what we ask people to do. Because we don't want to say we're doing something to faculty and then have them come and tell me it's not happening. We still have that happen, but it's much rarer than it was when we started. And then in 2006, I recruited my first assistant dean for faculty development. So now I had 2 of us in the office and a full-time administrative assistant for that person. And between 2006 and 2009, she developed over 100 courses, implemented them. She came from the university and had a background in, she was a psychologist with a background in really career development, and she had worked with faculty, and she was very dynamic and produced a really robust program. She unfortunately passed away in 2009, and it gave us sort of a time to reflect. And what I did was I called in, I talked to the dean. I said, you know, we've done a lot, but, you know, I think we have to assess where we are. And I asked Luann Thorndike, who is she actually started her career in faculty development at Hershey, and I'd known her then, and she's now the vice provost for academic affairs at University of Mass Med School. And she's really, she's still an active clinician, but she really has invested time and effort into faculty development, assessment. She really writes papers, so she's really a known expert. And in fact, if you want to do more, she gives she's really great to come and talk and to talk about this area. And so she came for 2 days. We sent her a lot of information before she came, and she assessed our accomplishments, our current programs, and she made recommendations. And I told her, please, I want you to, you know, you're not being asked to just put icing on the cake. We want to really know if the cake is good. So what she said was our current faculty development programs were well respected. They really went across missions, except that we could really do more for the research mission. However, the accessibility and utilization of the programs for faculty was not measured, and what she heard from the faculty when she talked to them was that it was hard to get to them. And to take an hour out of the day when they weren't planned was very difficult. And when we looked back, because we did track how many people went to these sessions, it was not the number that we would like. It was more in the range of 15 to 20 people per session, and some less. And with a faculty of tenure track faculty of 1,700 and a total faculty of 2,800, that's really not serving the faculty well. And then what was the effectiveness of the program? So we weren't doing a really in-depth assessment. So these are the things that she said that if we really wanted to build a robust program and know that our investment of faculty time and the resources from the dean's office were well spent, that we needed to do that. She also felt that the transparency of the promotion system was really still an issue. The culture of the School of Medicine for faculty didn't encourage faculty development, so there was this feeling among the faculty that their chairs felt that it was not time well spent. So if they were off doing 2 hours in faculty development, they weren't writing a grant, they weren't doing these other things. So we had to impact the, you know, even though we built faculty development by talking to them, it wasn't valued enough. And we needed to engage more faculty in faculty development. So having faculty, having leaders of the faculty being involved in faculty development and leading faculty development, she thought was important. And the climate for faculty needed to be assessed. She said the faculty were very demoralized. and we needed to create a framework for mentoring, training mentors and mentees. So she laid out a framework for us to improve. So this is now the faculty team. Remember, I started as me, and then I recruited one other person. This is now the team I have. There's another person, I don't have her picture, Cindy Rand. But so now we have a robust team. This is our Associate Dean for Faculty Development. She is a full professor in pediatrics. She was the chair of the Associate Professor Committee. David Usum, who is a professor in radiology. Mike Barone is an associate professor. He's my new associate dean for faculty development in education. And Kim Skorupski is our full-time person. She's 100%. She is a geriatrician who sort of has now devoted herself to faculty development, and I'll tell you about some of the initiatives she's doing. This is our consultant. She comes in and does the leadership role. She's has retired, and now she comes in and does our leadership. This is Barbara Fivish, who is our Associate Dean for Women in Science and Medicine. Chiquita Collins, the Associate Dean for Diversity, and Maura McGuire, who is a part-time faculty, who runs our longitudinal clerkship for our medical students, and who really has mobilized our part-time, or what you probably call volunteer faculty, for teaching and supporting them. So I now have a team. And Cindy Rand, my associate dean, is really sort of my supporter. So she's at both campuses, both our academic campuses, and we work together. So I now actually can get some traction, I think. And this team has been together. I mean, there's some new additions, but this team has now been together for about 3 years. So we are making progress, and I'll tell you about some of the things we're doing. So the single courses that we were offering and only getting a few faculty to, when we really talked to faculty, they said they needed their chair to buy into the fact that they were going to spend their time in faculty development. So what we did was we started for the women's courses a leadership program for women. The way that they got into the program was they were nominated by their chair. So right off the bat, we get buy-in from the chair. And the chair knows that they're going to put the time on their calendar. This was a longitudinal program. It went over 9 months, and there was certain time. We had them either early in the morning or late in the afternoon, beginning or end of the day. And we set goals for the program. And as you can see, the first cohort in 2009, 40 women represented 16 departments. And we had to limit it. We got a lot of other people, so we had to really choose the women with the potential. It's grown, and now we've actually, it's gotten such credibility because both the department chairs and the faculty find this so valuable that there's 4 schools involved. So the School of Nursing, School of Public Health, and the School of Arts and Sciences all send faculty. We allow them each one faculty member to send it to the program. So it's been very, very successful. What has it succeeded in? So these are the courses that are involved in it. And they are courses that, in fact, we find that perhaps are really important for women faculty. Negotiation skills are very important, but also empowering women to think about their influence and power. This, I teach part of this course. The Secret of Photo 51 is the story of, now I can't, Franklin, who actually did all the science around the Nobel Prize for the structure of DNA, Rosalind Franklin. And it's a movie that PBS made. And so what we do is we have the women watch the movie and then debrief about what she could have done different. Where were the issues? Was she? And it creates a 2-hour study in how women can change their situation and impact their role. And it's you see lights go off in the room, and it's it's good. And the other thing about the longitudinal programs is that the faculty come from all different departments. We have 30 departments. And so you get networking, and you get collaborations formed, and the groups really stay together, in not the whole group, but subsets of the group stay together. And it's been very powerful. The feedback we've gotten from the chairs are that the women faculty come back empowered to be leaders. They see a palpable change in them. One of Julie's faculty was in it and became one of her vice chairs, and is about to get promoted, right? And so these things, and that's a story for another faculty member. Another faculty member in otolaryngology came to see me after the first session on influencing for impact, and she said to me, I didn't know that I could do these things. I didn't realize it. I just had my head down and I was doing my work. And she's now one of the division chiefs in otolaryngology at Bayview. And so there's more stories like that. And we get letters and emails from both the faculty and the chairs. And so it's been highly valued. It was so highly valued that 2 years ago, the chair said, why isn't there a program for all the faculty? And so we started the second group of programs that are actually for men and women. But we've also done an evaluation and assessment. Because now we have these cohorts and we know who's coming and what they've accomplished, we can track them. We can track them to see who's coming to the class. We tell them that it has to be 80% of the sessions they have to come to. We ask them to write a plan at the beginning and to see at the end where they are in that plan. And we also have the department directors evaluate their faculty achievements, so to watch them and to involve them in more things once they come through the program. Faculty are tracked for promotion and for leadership positions. And so the major outcomes of the program were that the program expansion was requested by faculty and department chairs to be for all faculty, and the deans of the other schools have asked for women to be included. And in fact, we're probably going to model this across the university. So this is some of the data. So if you can see up on the top, this is all our faculty. And faculty, the time to promotion for men and women who are hired as assistant professors and are promoted to associate professor. And there's no difference now. So after about 6 years, we're really impacting promotion, we think. It was different previously. We had tracked it back in 2005, and there was a 2 to 3 year difference. If a faculty member is hired as an associate professor, there's still a gap of about a year, 4 months between men and women. And the gap for the clinical faculty is a little bit longer. But again, when you're hired as an assistant professor to associate professor, it's about the same. So we can really measure what's happening with our women faculty, and I think it's having a good impact for them. We've also been tracking our faculty salaries. This is data that only goes through 2010, but we have it now through 2013. And as you can see, the base salary is this is our FTE is our base salary, so that's the benefit salary. There's not that big a difference between men and women, and in fact, this is across the school. And women, are more. There are more women in pediatrics, which is a lower-paying specialty. Fewer women in some of the higher-paying neurosurgery and other practices, but a difference of 3.6 to 2.2 in salaries is really, I think it says that there is equity. There are not major disparities across the school. We also give this analysis for each department. I didn't want to show that because there are some trouble spots. Now, when you add bonuses, you see that difference increases. And when we drill down on that, it was because a lot of those bonuses are because of leadership positions. So division chiefs get more money. vice chairs of departments. And so this is an area we're now working on. When we track how many women in our school are division chiefs, it's less than 20% women. And so this is an opportunity for us and for other places, because if women are going to contribute to academic medicine and leadership roles, the first step is a division chief. And so this is sort of the goal over the next few years, to get the division chiefs to be more diverse, both in terms of women and minorities. This is the other impact, as you can see, this is the number of women that are promoted during these periods. 1900 to 1920, we had 1 woman. Now, that doesn't look good, but there were none at any other top medical school. Harvard didn't let women in until 1960. That's why Helen Taussig came to Hopkins. They didn't let women in. From about 95 to 2000, you can see this exponential growth in women being promoted. And I think one of the roles for that was that we did have women actively talking about these issues. Barbara Fivers came in and started it. And Julie, we're at 199. We're going to be at 200 by the end of this year. So it's, and this is pretty impressive. We're at 22% women professors at Hopkins, so we're really proud of that. So I think doing these interventions, focusing on helping women not be better, but to utilize the skills and the way they interact. So this is now our junior faculty leadership program that we offer now to all the faculty. The first year we had to give 2 sessions because there were so many faculty that were nominated that we gave 2 overlapping sessions. Now we give 1 a year. There's the mentee rules. I talked about this to a couple of people. What we find is that one of the things junior faculty don't realize is they have responsibility to be good mentees. They have to do the work as well as finding a mentor. And so this is part of the things that we talk about with them. And again, the value of the cohort study, the longitudinal cohort courses, is that the chairs nominate. They know their faculty are going to be there. The faculty know when their meetings, the sessions are going to be. They have them on their calendars. And we find that, the networking, the relationships bring great value. And so it's time really well spent. And for a lot of these things, both for the women's course and for this, we pull in our senior faculty. We ask them to do some of these. So David Usum, who is in my office, does the mentee rules. But for some of the establishing your leadership identity, we brought in a male and a female leader, Landon King, who is our executive vice dean, and Elizabeth Jaffe, who is a professor and a researcher, a clinical researcher. And they talked about how they developed their leadership identity. So we bring faculty in to add that feeling of authenticity, that this is how I did it. So it's really important. So these have been very successful, and we've really essentially do a very few individual sessions. We sometimes offer crucial conversations, 2-hour or 3-hour, but we find that we only get 10 to 11 faculty members. And so while we still offer it for some people who ask for it, this is the way that we are really proceeding. The other thing is that we have been doing, that my faculty development people really spearheaded this. Estelle Gaudas spearheaded this when she was the chair of the associate professor. 3 times a year we have these 2-hour sessions. The chair of the professorial promotion committee and the chair of the associate professor promotion committee they talk about the process for each of these committees. There's also a panel of 4 faculty, 2 who are associate professors, 2 are professors, to talk about how they prepared for promotion and their experience. And then there's a discussion. And we get 40 or more faculty, 40 to 50 faculty come. And this is really helpful. We film it, we put it online because this helps to make that whole promotion process personalized for them, and they hear about it. They know how to do it. And we also have an online nomination manager that works for the associate professor, but our professorial committee is still old school and does paper, so we're trying to get them to make it a continuous process. The thing that we've started in the last 2 years is a master mentor program. This came from Jennifer Haythornthwaite, well, not in my office, is supported by our Institute for Clinical Translational Research, our CTSA grant. And her role in the CTSA is to be to train mentors. And they, again, we use the same approach. We ask the chairs to nominate their mentor leaders in their department, and they spend time talking about mentoring, and many of them said, well, I know how to mentor. I've been doing this my whole career. And at the end, they found that there was a lot of important information and a lot of things that they didn't think about. Jennifer is a psychologist and actually certified as a coach, so they talk about coaching. You know, it's not just about the career and the science, but coaching about your skills, interaction, and things like that. So it's been really successful. We're in our third cohort. The second cohort is actually completing guidelines for mentoring best practices to be used to get across the schools. Another group from the basic sciences in that cohort, 2 faculty, are putting together a mentoring program for the basic sciences. Now, our basic science chair said they didn't really need mentors because everybody did it so well. But after these 2 faculty went through this, they said, we can do this better. So it's been really productive, and I think on the whole, people will know that being a mentor now is valued. I mean, it was sort of everyone assumed you were a mentor previously, right? But we find in the current culture of academic medicine, and it's not going to get any better, that time spent being a mentor disappears. You think you're going to do it, you want to do it, but there isn't time. So unless it's actually valued by the chair, valued by you and the other people in the department, we're not going to have mentored faculty, and that's a really important piece. So one of the really innovative things that Kim brought to us from her former institution was what she calls WAGs, Writing Accountability Groups. And when she first told me about them, I thought, are our faculty really going to just come to a group? But what it utilizes is what's called peer mentoring. And so what it is a WAG is an active writing group that meets weekly for 10 weeks. And what she does is she gets them started, but she gives them the responsibility. This is a peer group, and the peer she sort of raises peer pressure and peer expectations in that first session, and then they go off on their own. And she sets a strict agenda. 15 minutes for updates on how they're doing, 30 minutes of writing, and 15 minutes of reporting. And the participants commit to 7 sessions out of 10. And they were limited to 4 to 8 people. And I thought, this is Hopkins, people aren't going to do it. So what happened was she started it, she sent out an email, and our Bayview campus, which is our other academic campus, not the central one, it turned out that more of these groups formed at Bayview. In fact, in the first 3 months, there were 6 groups that formed. And then people at our campus, at the main campus, heard about it. And they said, why don't we have them here? And Kim said, you could have them here. It's just that. And so we now have something like 30 groups that have formed and had a product. What's the goal of this? The goal of this is to get the junior and mid-level faculty to know that they have time for writing. that this is a way to really have peer pressure to make you write. I mean, even I sometimes don't write when I should. So this was, and it's been very productive. There have been papers written that were stalled, and everybody says that it's really been good. And after the 10 weeks are up, it turns out many of these groups stay together because they need to, for that next paper or that next grant, they now have a group that reads their stuff, helps them with it, keeps them motivated to move on. And it's not that much time, and it's been valued. So how do we know that we're succeeding? Well, back in 2005, we did a faculty satisfaction survey, and our faculty were really not very happy. We saw that faculty didn't feel valued at Hopkins while they wanted to be at Hopkins because it was a great place to do their work. They had good colleagues, but there wasn't a feeling that they were valued. And so recently, we did it in 2005, we did it in 2009, and we just did it in 2013. And we looked at it just to get a sense of where we were, how much of the faculty development and the interventions we've done had worked. So we we designed it. We built it on the Wisconsin faculty survey. We used their base, but we then customized it to ours. And we had the dean send it out. The dean was new. He had just been there 6 months. And he sent it out with a cover letter that said he wanted to know. The faculty were really valuable to him. He wanted to know what they were thinking about these things, and he would act on these things. And so we got 63% response from our faculty, which any of you who ask the faculty to do anything know that it was really good. And so we, again, handed the data over to the Biostat Center, and they helped us analyze it. And we also separated the data for departments, so the departments get all the data. Now, I'm not going to show you all the dimensions of it, but one of it was level of satisfaction of being a faculty member at Hopkins. And we compared that. This was the only comparative question to the AAMC. And we were really happy. I mean, we were really surprised, actually, at the fact that people were satisfied. The blue is Hopkins and the green is AAMC. Because we also have gendered data, I'll show you too. Level of satisfaction of being a faculty member by gender. So because we asked for people to self-identify, we could actually look at whether men and women were equally happy. Now, this wasn't true in 2005. The women really reported a lot of disparities in their satisfaction. And here you can see, while there's a small difference, that it's not really significant. And so I think we've really impacted the satisfaction that women feel valued. Satisfaction with climate in their department or division, again, was pretty good. And my department or division being collegial. And then the overall level of satisfaction and climate for women in your department. So this is where we do see a little bit of a difference, and that is not, again, not statistically significant, but it is a little bit worrisome. The difference is a little worrisome for us. When we look at it by rank, it turns out that the senior women, associate professors and professors, are pretty happy. And so this difference is really due to the junior people, who I think it's the hardest on them to get going. And then what we did do was we looked at career satisfaction, career progression, and we looked at the mentoring question, because we asked, were their mentoring needs being met? And so we asked how that intersected. And what we found was that faculty who were dissatisfied reported not to have their mentoring needs met, whereas the faculty who were satisfied had their needs met at a very, the mentoring needs met at a very high rate. And this went for both assistant and associate professor. And in fact, our mentoring specialists asked us particularly to sort this out and do this. So it just shows that, in fact, there's a correlation between really giving faculty what they need, preparing our mentors, giving our mentees some guidelines to be good mentees, and making your faculty feel like they're valued and they're succeeding. So I think there is really good value in investing in faculty development. I think you have to assess it. And we're continuing to assess it. The dean wants to make sure that we're not wasting our faculty's time and his money. But I think if you do it right and you get everybody to buy into it, including the chairs of it's going to have a result. We need to value our faculty. Academic medicine is not going to get less stressful. It's going to get more stressful. And if we want to attract really good people and keep them here, we're going to have to do some things for them. So that's my story. This is satisfaction with the promotion process. I thought I was near the end. And in fact, that has improved too. I think generally people are either neutral or very satisfied. So I think we're making progress there. So what we've learned, faculty development must be a partnership between the leaders and the faculty. And we have to agree on what the goals and outcomes are. What do the faculty need? What do they want? And so that when I go to the dean to ask for yet another position, I can tell him that his money is being well spent, that the faculty, that things have improved, that things are going better. Evaluation assessment is really important, and that we have to put we put resources into doing that. And then I think what we're doing now may not be right in 3 years. So we've got to keep looking at what we're doing and reassessing the climate for faculty and figuring out what's the next issue they're going to have and keeping ahead of the curve. And that's why I think Kim's WAGs, and she's also doing these K groups, how to transition your K to a R, and she's getting the groups, peer mentoring groups together. We've got to help faculty equip them with the things that will make them succeed. But one program is not going to last forever, and we're going to have to keep looking. The support and involvement of leadership in the faculty, leadership and faculty development promotes a culture in investing and developing faculty. So we have our chairs giving these faculty promotion talks. We have our senior faculty involved in faculty development, and what it says is there's value there. They're spending their time in it. It's valuable to the faculty. And there's one thing I really want to do, and I've talked to people here. Nobody, I think, has actually done this, and we need to do it. What's the actual cost of faculty turnover? We bring in an assistant professor, and they leave after 3 years. There's enormous costs there. And sometimes our CFO will say to me, well, we can hire somebody cheaper. Well, first of all, we can't hire them cheaper anymore because salaries are going up. We've now lost someone with a grant, or someone who's doing a clinical program that we're losing momentum in. And so I think we don't know the cost. And I think I need to get the attention of the finance people to actually do this. At least put some number around that, because I think we need to know the cost. And we have to get around a culture that faculty are disposable, because that's what that generates. If we can just see faculty churning, and we see turnover, and turnover is increasing. Our turnover has been about 9 to 10%, and the last year it's risen to 12 or 13%. Now that could be a blip, or it could be a trend, and we're looking at that. But I worry about it. So these are the things that we've learned. I've learned a lot from you today, and I think this is a good way to get things going. So thank you.
I really felt like it was a walk through history, because I remember as you grew all that, I got there in 2003 as
right,
we added.
yes.
So certainly Janice will take a few questions for any of you too. Michael, you want to ask?
One of the things that in leadership programs you talk about is self-awareness or emotional intelligence.
Right.
Is that part of your strategy as well?
Yes, we do that. We don't call it that because that's not sort of, but we do a session on that. Your leadership identity contains that, and we do Myers-Briggs for the junior faculty. So we do all of those things. And we have Linda Dillon-Jones she's an expert in doing those leadership assessment tools. Yeah.
You didn't show any data on physician scientists. Do you even know how many MDs, practicing MDs that you have that have R1s?
Oh, we do. I couldn't show all the data, but we do have that data. So we are a really research-intensive institution. So if you look at the time spent of our faculty, our clinical, our people in clinical departments on clinical versus research, in fact, they're about 35% involved in clinical work and about 60% involved in research. And so we're really, so we have a culture where we have a lot of clinical researchers, both basic, we have you had basic scientists, but a lot of the translational work, and now the safety and innovation work. So we have a large number.
Difference between satisfaction in those groups, or are they too small to say? Are the basic scientists struggling more than the innovators, or not anything that springs out looking at differences? Is that part of what?
Is that what you're? Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea how many physicians we have here with R1s. I'm assuming.
Well, we do know because we can. Yeah.
I'm a dermatologist.
Right.
Dermatology at Hopkins. There weren't any when I applied there. So
right.
It's
right.
very rare, at least in my field, to have them. And I was wondering if anybody even has the data.
No, we do have the data because we have a clinical practice association and we have the Office of Research Administration, and we look at that productivity information. I should have that number, but I don't. But it's a large number, and it is.
Anything that you put in for those people to support them, because I saw all of these.
Oh, yeah. I did spotty stuff. Yes, we actually are having a discussion right now about the clinical, our clinician path, and should we make it a track. And in fact, what we did was we sent out, because people were struggling balancing the clinical and their research, and we did a survey for faculty asking that question. And people felt that they needed a defined way to do their clinical scholarship and get credit for it, but they didn't want a separate path, but they want definition. So I don't think it's, I don't think that we could not separate out in the satisfaction survey. We did clinical faculty versus basic science by MD and PhD, but that doesn't tell you. So we don't have the satisfaction data, and I don't know how to really answer your question. I think we're a different school. We are one of the most, like Harvard, Duke, and Stanford, and we're probably the most research intensive. So our clinical people are largely involved in research. I mean, even the surgical departments are. They have got a lot of NIH and private funding. So, did I answer your question, or did I get around it?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it possible that our mentoring program can be too successful, pulling clinical faculty out of the clinics and then having the pushback that, well, how do you cover their service?
Well, so yeah, we deal with that, and I mean, these sessions are given at a time when hopefully we don't interfere with a lot of that. We do plan, as I say, very early in the morning. That's not early enough for surgeons, but then they come in the evening. But there's a small number too, and so the goal to some extent is to get the senior people who are also, we're seeing this need to transition, clinical people who are clinically active and are getting more senior and want to actually stay clinically active but have some other role. A lot of those people are in that program. So the whole idea of, and I didn't bring this up, but we're taking on this whole faculty transition issue because I think it's really important. Because there's capacity there, right? A surgeon, by the time they're 66, is still on our faculty, yet they may want to ramp back, but they have so much to share. So, it's a balance. It's a balance. And it's choice. Some people will choose to do it, too.
So,
Yeah.
you mentioned crucial conversations.
Right.
What are your thoughts about taking something like that or something similar to that, but not making it optional, making it a requirement? My assumption is it wasn't required at Hopkins, or did I misunderstand that?
Well, so people have to come to 80% of the sessions. Usually they don't come to a not because they choose not to do that, but rather because of a time constraint. So they usually get most of those.
So it is required?
Yes, it's
Okay.
part of that. It's part of that, yeah. It's one that we offer separately, but again, it's just hard to get faculty to have that time to do a drop-in. But it's really valuable. They really like that. I mean, and for leadership, it's really an important. Yeah. Sorry. No.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to stick with your lifespan theme,
Right.
but rather than end of career about beginning.
Right.
Do you think, is it your impression that your intensive faculty development program now has made coming on faculty more attractive to residents, fellows, medical students? Do you think women who are earlier in training or underrepresented in medicine, and Hopkins has done a nice job in some of the departments increasing the diversity
Right,
of
right,
your,
yeah.
of your trainees, the students and residents? Do you think that, are you beginning to think that maybe some of the efforts to promote this culture of development for the faculty makes it more attractive for students to consider?
I hope so. I know we've gotten requests from some of our fellows to be part of the program, and we say, well, you have to wait. We just don't have the capacity. But yeah, I hope so, because I think it's people are talking about it, and it's the first time we've done something for our, for faculty special. They feel special. I mean, they're. We actually feed them, which you don't get a lot of food, right? So yeah, I think, I hope so. I don't think it's been long enough to know, it's got to, sort of be part of our culture. It's not quite part of our culture yet, but I'm hoping that will be the change, yeah.
I certainly noted when I nominated my women for that initial program, very competitive, everybody wanted to be in it. I really made sure that you always took two of mine, and if it's only one, I would have a conversation, why you only took one. And I did see a change, especially Nita, who's now my vice chair of research back at Hopkins, just really watching her grow out of it to do it. And they do get their own little network. I think it gets people out of their departments and makes them go, and they really get addicted to it. They don't want to miss it. So they figure out how to cover themselves or what to do. Many of them are in the evening. They're from 7 to 9 in the evening. 7 to 10, and they have a retreat. So they really decide to block that on their schedule so that they're able to do their other things too. Other questions for Janice?
Sorry, I don't want to dominate.
No.
So there's always the assumption that if you stay at the program you trained in, then it's harder to get the same startup and the same. But if you are recruited from the outside, you get a higher professor rank, you get more startups.
Absolutely.
Do you have any data on that, or?
At Hopkins, it's absolutely true. It's right. It's absolutely true.
Everywhere I've been, it's absolutely true.
It's true.
The key is to take the course so that you know how to be a negotiator.
But that's because you want to stay. If you want to stay, you don't negotiate. You have to realize you can negotiate to stay. And that's what I think hopefully people know, Actually, we just retained a URM out of fellowship because he knew. He had offers. And so we asked him what he wanted, and he knew what he wanted. He'd already was ready to put a K in, but he wanted to make sure. He wanted a safety net. So he was smart about it.
What is your hamster?
What?
Underrepresented minorities.
Oh, underrepresented. Yeah. He was an African American and in pediatric ID, and it was really opportunity for us. So but he shopped himself around, and it was great because we, now he feels more valued. He feels like we just didn't hire him, right? He knew that he was getting something competitive.
I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned, okay. I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned the mentee rules. So how was that received when this came through, as you brought the program online into departments where they really didn't have this? So, because I'm just kind of interested, we're doing some transitions ourselves, and so just kind of getting an idea for different ideas coming from a large department.
Well, so I don't think it was controversial because what we were doing is telling the mentees that they had responsibility, right? And that there had to be, so it was the other side of the mentor course where there has to be an agreement. You don't just assume someone is your mentor. You sit down, you talk about it, and you work out what each other expects from the other, right? And what we were finding is a lot of the mentors were being disappointed because the mentees weren't, they were in some cases afraid to ask for more time or didn't do the things they should have done that they had agreed upon doing. So the mentee rules are all about what's the junior mentee's role in having a good relationship. So, I haven't heard that we've gotten a pushback on that. These are junior people, I think one of the issues, too, is to tell mentees that sometimes there are bad mentors. We call them tormentors. Actually, Lisa Heiser coined that. And that you can get out of that, but you have to do it in a political way that you don't end up with someone who's not looking out after you, but that there are situations that you get into that are not productive. And that if there are demands put on you by this mentor to be on your papers or to help with everything, then that you should extricate yourself. So the mentee rules explain all of that and sort of go through that. It's an hour and a half, and then there's discussion. So it goes through all the things that we as senior people have seen or experienced ourselves, So, yeah. So there wasn't much pushback because it was sort of, it could be controversial, but I guess it wasn't. Now that you say it, I'm thinking it could be really controversial.
Well, we really appreciate Janice, you being here. Janice is a runner and exercises, so we've got hats for you to wear as you walk around to the health system. Little bag when you go back to Hopkins, so that you carry this around wherever you go.
Which one do I wear now? My Hopkins surgery hat or this one?
Oh, you can share them to do that.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But we really do appreciate you being here. We're going to have a little reception, and Janice will be around tomorrow. And then out at Davis this week, too, on Friday, she's going to be talking at the microbiology forum as well, too, and talk about her science as well.
HIV eradication.
Yeah. So she's got feet in both camps, and we so appreciate it so much. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And we're going to honor her in the from there, too.
Oh.